All right, good afternoon, Cyber Traders. Welcome on back this Thursday, August 25th. Great to see Donald. Great to see Kathleen and Brian and Norman as well. And perhaps all of us rejoining us live inside the trading room. Great to see you. There we go. Great to see Leda and Mike as well. Let me get that back up on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube. Voila, we're good to go, folks. Great to see all of us there as well. Now, I'll tell you what, the markets have just been in this range today, albeit after the market opened up, we ended up seeing a nice lift up on the SPY, and even now we're seeing a nice little slow uptrend back up towards those highs heading into this afternoon meeting. So with that in mind, let's just go across the percent gainers and losers lists. I don't have class later today. I do have a coaching session with one of our students coming up, but we have a little time for any of the big movers that ended up running. We'll look to recap those pretty briefly. I'll tell you what, I ended up hitting my day's pay shortly prior to 12 p.m. I gave almost half of it back. So with that in mind, I am in a couple of trades. One of them's doing pretty nicely. The other one I'm down just a little bit on. I got my stop set, so if that takes me out, it's not going to hurt. But just right now, we'll go through a couple of these stocks, and we'll jump to Peloton, one of the others that I'm in just a bit. So for here, the plug, this is the one. This is like my demon stock here at this point. This thing made me give back almost half my profits. So this was just, I was looking for the drop off a little bit further once it ended up coming back down here. So I ended up getting chopped up looking for the short, looking to make the lower high and for the retest of 29. Ended up taking a loss there. Right here, when it was squeezing back up, I ended up trying to take the same trade, looking for the short, the break back down. Well, the markets were pushing up at that point, and with plug coming off the big pop early in pre-market, it's not much of a surprise, but I was looking to see it make that rounded top a little bit, and I ended up getting stopped out for -7 there. So that's where I ended up giving back a decent chunk of my profits throughout the day. It was just a few trades repetitively. So with that, hey, plug is still very active. Just because I didn't do well on it doesn't mean that you didn't do well on it. So there was a bunch of us that did do pretty nicely on the stock, shorting it down when the market opened up. That's what threw me for the initial loop, where I thought, hey, off the initial pop, we would see a higher low, then the break back up towards 32 resistance. So once this dropped after the market opened up, I was looking for the bounce there and ended up beginning to take my losses. So from that point, it ended up actually breaking down a lot more. So, nice short. For right now, at least, heading into the afternoon, it's holding the VWAP and 30 as resistance. For me, that I was expecting that, but of course, right when I'm expecting that, I don't take the trades. So, right, damned if I do, damned if I don't. So it's saying that, hey, I'm not going to personally follow this stock into the afternoon. That's me speaking, right? But with that in mind, it's very tradable. And if you did very well or pretty nicely on this stock from earlier today, you're going to definitely be more inclined to follow it here. Let's jump ahead right now. We'll go to number one, or rather number two on the gainers list here. Vaccine stock, I reckon. So this one right now ended up trying to make the pop over 630. It did make a beautiful pop after the morning here, mid-morning. Ended up making the huge squeeze up. Suddenly, I missed this off of 590. I was looking for that in pre-market, looking to see this hold off of 590 and then make the squeeze up from there. Just right place, wrong time, I reckon, but ended up making the beautiful pop, lifted up all the way up towards the high of 745. And then from there, the volume died off. And then this ended up snapping back down. So, for the afternoon here, I was hopeful to see this hold over 630 and at least make one more attempt, one more run back up, perhaps up towards the VWAP. Ended up just getting stopped out as I was reviewing the plug trade. So that was one of the two that I was in. Ended up taking a -4 right there. Tiny in relation. The Peloton stock is the only other trade I'm actively in, and we'll jump to that one while I'm at it. We'll go to the gainers side back in just a second here. But Peloton off the VWAP. This was an incredible short as it ended up testing the VWAP for the first time across the day here. Ended up tanking, of course, when the market opened up and from pre-market there. But just recently, I ended up taking this as a short right from 11:15. I ended up getting out right over 11 here shortly above. I was looking for the lower low at this point. So made a little money on that short, but I jumped back in. I'm in right from $11 right now, or $10.99 to be exact. So I'll keep my eye on this trade here. But Peloton, although looking a little slow here, it's definitely worth watching at this point, whether this ends up continuing for me or not. It's still very active, down big. It's trading a ton of volume, so you might think it's going to be pretty exhausted. Wait till 3:30 on this trade. If you're looking for the trade, maybe it goes back up to 11 and then pulls back. for my trade's sake. I hope that doesn't happen. But, there could be a possible trade opportunity here coming up on the Peloton. Just give it a little bit at least. Wait till more of like 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon. But for right now, I'll slip this on our main watch list here with the plug trade. All right, so we'll just go back to the gainers side right now. Let me jump to my Peloton book map here just to kind of keep an eye on that there. TCRT, wow, this one ended up making a nice squeeze up suddenly. It was like a creeper. Ended up making a nice little pop above resistance here off of like 235, I reckon, 234, 235, and it just started to slowly chug along. Hey, if you took that trade and held on, God bless. That's an awesome trade. I don't know if most of us are looking to hold on to a position all throughout the day like that, especially if you have things to do or, if you're multitasking. So to say to jump in here and hold up all the way through, unless if you're like actively looking to do that, it's hard to, expect the perfect run up, right? So with that, hey, it's making a beautiful run and it's at the highs right now. Hopefully this just becomes a lot faster of a trade here heading into the close. Right now it's approaching resistance roughly off of the 268 level, about 12, 13,000 shares on the ask there. And then at 275, there's about 16, 17,000 shares you could see up top. So those are two levels to watch out on this TCRT trade. What I like about this also is that, God forbid, if this fails to squeeze up higher, if this makes the lower highs at least, then the stock actually is shortable if you're on TradeStation. So, we look to try and take trades long and short and not just, long on the way up as it's at the highs here. Like, what if this fails to move up higher, like right from this meeting? What if it makes a false breakout over even 268 and then comes storming back down? Those are scenarios we at least need to think about just in case. So for right now, definitely respect the trend. It's still holding the trend up off the lows pretty tightly here. But, perhaps heading into 3 o'clock, if this fails to show continued direction here, think otherwise. Think about the short. All right, so we had VAC, we had TCRT. Did I go over drug yet? I don't think I went over drug yet. Ended up making a nice little pop after the market opened up. This was probably the best trade that we had across the morning. Ended up popping up pretty nicely right up from 240, lifted up towards 3. It ended up eventually holding perfectly under 3 afterwards here, shaking around and back under the level. And with that, if it's not going to re-break resistance, then you may as well expect for it to pull back right around 10:30 Eastern time, 10:15, 10:30. Ended up seeing the snap under 3 or snap from 3. Dropped all the way down towards previous resistance. I ended up jumping into this trade from 245 with one of my students, Alan, earlier. We ended up doing pretty well on the trade. Ended up getting out, I think, what was it, like 267, 268, Alan? Could have done a little bit better. Squeezed above the VWAP, where I was expecting resistance. And then from there, it was just very choppy, very nasty afterwards, right? So, with saying that, actually, if you take a look on level 3, I just caught this right now from the corner of my eye. You have a 286,000 share iceberg right now in drug. How long has that guy been out there for? We're going to answer that question here. I'll bring up level 4. I'll bring up bookmap here. Have a little fun right now. I haven't seen that order yet today. So that ended up popping up shortly after the chop here, after it failed to hold over the VWAP, which I was personally looking for at the time. I wanted to see this break over the VWAP finally and make its big pop. Obviously, it didn't do that. Well, as soon as it broke back under it, shortly afterwards here, about maybe like 10, 15 minutes after at that, we ended up seeing this big 280,000 share order popping up here at 270. All right, so for right now, drug, listen, it's tradable, but the issue is that it's trading so much damn volume across the day. This is definitely a stock that's more exhausted more than anything. It's not often that this stock in particular is trading 120 mil a day. So, prior to the initial squeeze that we had back from the end of last week, I think the stock was trading like 26, 30,000 shares per day. That's crazy low. So be careful on this stock now after it already made its big move. If it ends up popping by the end of this meeting or afterwards, we'll give it a chance. But for right now, with lower highs, we often see lower lows. Looking back and forth on my Peloton trade if you ever catch me looking back. So making sure that's in good faith there, that drop off right now. It's slowly churning down off of 1090. So let's see what else we have here, folks. I know that Fausto put snow on our watch list here was Snowflake. Is that the name of the company? Snowflake Inc. Ended up seeing this make a nice little slingshot after the market opened up, dropped under 186, right back over, and off she went. So nice little move there, right? But a little expensive, unless if you're doing the one share on it. MSFR for right now on this one. I'm going to pass on this too. This one dropped off from like 10, 11 bucks back from mid-May, as you could see, big gap down after. So perhaps there's even further chance to see this squeeze up over time. But right now, the volume totally died off on this trade right now. I reckon it's making higher lows and kind of inching up within this range here recently. But, if there's more volume to come in on this trade, we'll be able to call it out. We'll have our scanners up and running, ready to go. So, for the meantime, I'd rather follow a stock like VLCN here. We ended up trading this back from, I believe it was Monday of this week as well. Ended up making a big pre-market move then, but pop and drop. Well, over the last couple of days, sneakily enough, this thing has been moving back up pretty nicely. You don't really see that too often, so it's not as if we were like actively calling this out, at least over the last couple of days, maybe once or twice. But right now, this looks a lot more tempting here than anything. You have about a 20,000 share iceberg on the ask up top at 3. And above that, watch out, you got one at 305 as well. So, the combination of them both is going to create a big resistance. But the fact it's at the highs here, that's the interesting part. So we'll look to see if it can make that next 10 to 15 cent squeeze up from where it's at now. All right, we're dropping and dropping on Peloton here. My fingers are crossed. Hopefully I don't jinx that. We got Frey here, not a whole lot happening on that one. AVYA, let's briefly talk about AVYA. It looks like, garbage now, but ended up making a big squeeze up when the market opened up. This had resistance off of 160 early on, though, that Fausto and myself ended up spotting during our audio broadcast from the morning. And from that point, you could just see, heading into the mid-afternoon, it moved up there. The first time since the morning, it's testing that level. You would have to expect that to hold. The first test is the best test, even though that's not the first, that's the second tech. It's been a long while since it tested that first 160 level, so you treat that as if it's the first test again, and a false break. So with that, this one's written off for right now here, this AVYA. All right, what else we have here? We got figs. I know Fausto is loving this figs trade from the morning, at least he saw it. So you know what? I reckon it's been inching up pretty nicely here, right? From like 12:30 Eastern time, it moved up from 1090 all the way up towards 1170. It's trading about 45,000 or 50,000 nearly shares per minute. That number is always, fluctuating and often drops off after a bit. But the stock's trading a lot of volume, more or less, right? So you know what? I like this figs trade. I'm going to put this on our list. All right. Let's see. The Chinese markets were moving up pretty nicely earlier today. Yin, I think, is the bullish Chinese ETF. Ended up making a big pop at 10 o'clock. Rich had called that out earlier. Let's see what else we got on the gainer side here, though. Any other familiar names that I see here? And well, speaking of some of the Chinese stocks, we got Billy, we have PDD. I'm sure Neo's floating around there somewhere. My Neo ended up seeing Billy here, ended up making a big squeeze up from the morning and then a higher low heading into the late morning, early afternoon. Well, it ended up just stalling out here for right now. So the Billy trade here, I'm going to write off. The PDD, a little bit more expensive, I think, right? But yeah, same thing on this one. All right. My lovely NIO here, ended up making a nice squeeze from the market open, ended up just floating around 20 just now and pulling back. Perhaps it's all of these Chinese stocks kind of just pulling back slightly. Either way, I'm not too interested at this stage, unless if they were showing great direction towards the highs. I'm not going to be as keen. All right, I skipped over Pinterest here, and Pinterest, not a Chinese stock, I don't think, but nonetheless, up big today, and this is still pretty near the highs. So if we happen to have a higher low within the market and one more big bounce, then perhaps this could show some good strength. You know what? I don't mind putting this on our list here for right now, the Pinterest stock. Much needed water break in the meantime. All right, so let's hop over to the losers list here, folks. If there's anything else looking good that's up big, type it in the chat board now. Mark had called out a short on ANF, so we'll get to that in just a moment. MEGL. Well, you knew this would happen at some point. Didn't know when, but the stock from last week ended up popping from 10 up towards 20. I mean, it came back down 2 days later, but look at where it's at today, right? Down another 24% from yesterday. At $8 now at this point. Stbx, this one's been dropping off, but it's a new IPO. You cannot short this. So unfortunately, move on from that one here. Peloton trying to squeeze back up, inch up a tiny amount. Looks like some short covering started to come in. You do have an order on the ask here, about 63,000 shares at 1094. I have my stop set a penny above my entry price. So God forbid if it does spike up one more time, then I'll get stopped out break even, so they say. So, I'll look to try and reposition myself afterwards should that happen. But, I'm still in from 1099. We'll see if this ends up dropping off pretty nicely from this point forward. Wow. SIGA ended up making a big move down today. I didn't see that up until right now. I think maybe one or two of us had called it out briefly, but even after the big drop, after the market opened up, it stalled out for quite a while. So easy to say now, but gradually throughout the day, this was making a very nice drop off. Hey, given how much it's down, it's much closer to the lows than its highs, and for right now, this SIGA stock is one that we're also very familiar with, much like Peloton and Plug and Pinterest. I'll separate all of the P's on the watch list, folks. More for myself and Fausto than for you, perhaps for anyone that has trader's dyslexia. I'm going to try and separate Pinterest, Peloton, Plug. All right. So what else do we have here across the loser side? Marks A&F, Abercrombie Fitch. Is this? He's calling out the short. The break of 17, perhaps. It's just a little slow. That's the issue on it, right? So it is dropping off pretty nicely. It's down over 8%. It is trading about 10,000 shares per minute. Hopefully that number picks up a little bit more. Hopefully this smash is under 17 and that number picks up a lot more. So, I'll put it on our watch list for right now because aside from the squeeze up after the open, it has been making a very steady drop. So I feel like there could be continuation heading into the afternoon. And hey, if the markets don't squeeze up and they make a bit of a drop off here into the afternoon, so should that happen, you could see this drop back down towards pre-market resistance. Seems like it was briefly holding underneath like 1640-ish, 1645. So if all goes according to plan there, that could be a decent trade. Move my water bottle out the way there. All right, what else we got here across the losers list? We'll wrap up in just a moment, folks. Got to make sure I send my coaching link out to Alex, one of our students coming up. Root, not a whole lot happening here on Root. It is at the low of the day, I reckon, but not really trading a lot of volume. Mara down 8%. This has been dropping off. Wow. All right, so I'll tell you what, if you could short Mara, put it on your watch list. I'll put it on the watch list just in general for those folks. Riot is also a crypto mining stock, Bitcoin mining stock. This one at least has been shortable on TradeStation. It's not nearly making the type of drop or at least to the lows here, making new lows like Mara is. We'll take a look on Coinbase. Nice drop there, at least. It's down just about 2-3%. A little expensive, but if you do well on Coinbase, it looks pretty sharp here into the afternoon. Peloton pulling back down right off that iceberg I called out at 1094. All right, what else we got here from John? He says KWeb, it's a more expensive Chinese. It's an ETF, probably not going to trade it. Yeah, not going to really trade that. Let's see, we got anything from social media, Facebook Live, YouTube. We're not as particular about the ETFs, only if they're like trending incredibly well. So I only brought up Yin just to mention that Rich had called out from before that they were popping. But yeah, we're not going to look to follow ETFs really. Unless if you have level 4. If you have level 4, then it makes it just a little bit easier, but still it's a pain in the butt. All right, folks, I think that might just about do it. I'll tell you what, I said from earlier, right? Like, hey, the way the markets were looking, and this is like a typical summer day, it is slow out there. So there's a couple of trades. We have a decent list, right? It's not like we have a short list, if anything. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stocks to work with. But mind you, a good number of them are dropping off right now. So this could be an interesting short afternoon into the close, but we'll see what's ahead. All right, I'm going to jump onto a coaching call with one of our students here at 3 p.m., folks. Afterwards, I may not be back into the trading room, so best of luck trading going into the market close for all. If you're on social media right now, Facebook Live, YouTube, and we're interested in joining our live trading room, at least continuing our audio commentary with Rich, just go right down to the link on the yellow banner below right there to sign up. If you have any questions beforehand or during or afterwards, feel more than free to email myself, Josh at ctutrading.com. Always like to post my email here at the end of these streams. I'll talk to everybody soon. Take care.
Become a Cyber Group member today. Just click the link below and receive all these amazing products and a world of knowledge for just $9. Do it today.